Welcome to the Let's Talk Politics Alabama podcast with your host, Daniel Stover and Russ Sanders, where we take a look at Alabama politics like a drive down I-65 from North Alabama to the state capital in Montgomery and all the way to the Sugar Sand Coast.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
We choose truth over facts.
I don't want to speak negatively. I said, though, that if I lose this election, maybe I'll end up moving to Alabama.
Someone has once said that actually, as long as there are final exams, there will be prayer in schools.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Let's Talk Politics Alabama podcast with your host, Daniel Stover and Russ Sanders. So this week, we're going to dive off into political parties, kind of what they mean. I'll put up on the, if you're watching us on YouTube, I'll put up on the screen here a little comparison of the political parties, and you can kind of see between them. But, you know, it never fails. We always hear one thing when you're out trying to campaign for a candidate or for the party, and it's always that I don't vote for the party, I vote for the person. Well, Russ, you vote for the person, don't you?
Generally speaking, but that person usually has some lines or some values associated that lean towards one party or the other.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the parties play a role. Is it's they kind of provide a baseline for those that don't know that person on a personal level. I mean, I can sit here and say, you know, well, I'm on Russ's dad as the sheriff, and I'm gonna vote for him because, well, I know him. He's my neighbor. But Joe down the road over here might not know Russ's dad. And he's looking for some way to associate Russ and his dad with something that he is associated with, whether that be gun rights or, you know, well, just anything that's in that party platform. And that kind of helps steer people in that direction. I mean, it gives you a baseline, I guess you would say.
It also associates them with, I mean, if you're part of a party or whatever, you know, all politics start locally. If somebody's part of a party, then they are basically signing on and agreeing to the levels, whether that be state, you know, local level, state level, and country level politics. You're being branded as that. You're buying into that way of thinking, you know, all the way up to President of the United States. Your values are aligned with that when you assign yourself with a particular party. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with them 100%, but generally speaking, you agree with a majority of what they're pushing, their message they're pushing at whatever level of government.
That's right. And actually, if you go back and look at the qualifying documents that you sign whenever you're running for office, both parties actually have in their documents that you agree to support their party platform. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a legally binding document because you're using that to qualify to run for an office on that ticket. But you know, are you saying, okay, I'm going to run as a Democrat and I believe nothing that they say? Okay, well, that's not what you signed a paper saying.
Does that mean that you hate Democrats? Do you hate Democrats just because you don't?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've got several friends that are Democrats, and I work with several people that are Democrats. You know, we get along just fine. I have one friend that is he mostly aligns with the Democrat Party, and quite honestly, he thought Trump was a big idiot. And you know what? there were times when I thought that as well. And I'm sure Russ, probably you thought that as well as too, you know, there was probably times when you went, he just needs to shut up. He'd be all right if he'd just be quiet. But you know, it is what it is. Here's that long, awkward pause.
Just because you're Republican or whatever, you don't have to agree with everything that everybody does all the way up, through the ranks. You can disagree with people within your party and all that, but generally speaking, as a general whole, the goals of the political parties have a certain end to them, and that's kind of the way that you lean towards, or that's what you want to see transpire, if you will.
You know, I remember a country song, and I'm not going to name artist here because I'm probably 100% wrong, but there was a country song that had a line in it that says, "You've got to stand for something, or you fall for anything."
Mm-hmm.
Where do you stand? You know, I even talked to. There was a candidate that he you know, professed that, you know, hey, I'm Republican, and you know, these are my values. And he went and ran on the Democrat ticket. So either those weren't your values or what? I'm confused about why you would do that. Why are you going to?
Lawrence County candidate, right?
Yes, it was. But why are you going to, you know, set your own principles aside to run on a ticket that you don't believe in? I guess a lot of people say, well, you know, we've gone, for example, we've gone from a county where we were predominantly Democrat, and you had to run on the Democrat ticket in order to win, to where now it's right the opposite. You've pretty much got to run on the Republican ticket to win. And a lot of counties in Alabama have switched that way.
2010 was the big switch here, right?
Yes, that was a big switch here for Lawrence County. We elected, let's see, what was it? 3 of 5 commissioners, I think it was.
Then the judges were appointed.
The judges were reelected in 10.
Yeah, they were
after being appointed.
District attorney.
Yes, district attorney was appointed and reelected, I think. Was that right? 10? I'm not 100%
No, I
sure.
think that was a little bit later.
I think it may have been. But one of the biggest ones was the Republican Party unseated a long-term Democrat state representative. A lot of people know Jody Letson and remember him as our representative, but Ken Johnson was able to unseat him not once. Well, he unseated him, and then Jody turned around and ran again, and Ken beat him again. So it's Lawrence County is one of those counties that it's turned from you got to run as Democrat to you got to run as Republican now. So,
there's a lot of people, even this last race is like, oh, Republican, you know, got to run as a Democrat. And I was like, I don't think you really are paying attention to what's going on. And I had several of those conversations with people that said, you know, my values align with the Republican Party, but got to run as a Democrat. And that's just some leftover stuff from back in the day when the Democratic Party was so popular here. I think the last surge of anybody trying to run as a Republican would probably date back all the way to the Reconstruction after the Civil War. You know?
Yeah. Well, one thing that gets me always is, and I know I'll probably catch some flack for this one, but you know, my grandmother voted as a Democrat, I'm going to vote as a Democrat. Well, yeah, grandma done that, but the thing is, the Democrat Party was different then. I mean, you go back to what Ronald Reagan said of, the party left me, I didn't leave the party. Um, back in the day, the Democrat Party was probably the more for the little guy, or at least that's the way that it came across. But now, uh, even though they claim that, I don't see that in their actions. And we've seen too where we've had more prosperity under a Republican run legislature, Congress, Senate, and presidency. I mean, just take gas prices right now. I mean, we went from, it was getting close to $1.25 a gallon or so.
I've seen it under $1.
And then just in the past year, it has skyrocketed. Well, less than a year, it has skyrocketed back to almost $3 a gallon. I mean, that's something that we all look at every day and go, yeah, that was an issue. But that being said, there's a lot of people that also want to talk about third parties. Why do we have a two-party system? Well, that's kind of how it's worked out. People like we've said, you kind of gravitate towards the one that you're most like. It doesn't have to be 100%, but I looked up a few of them here, Russ. There's several third party. I mean, there's an entire huge list of them out there. One that you probably have heard about before is the Green Party. But
always been a candidate in national politics.
yeah. There's a Working Families Party, a Constitutional Party, a Socialist Workers Party, the Reform Party, the Unity Party, and here was my favorite. And I know you're going to love this one, Russ. You might even have to get your eye patch out for this one. The United States Pirate Party. So, there's a lot of third parties out there, but
we're missing a big one. Missing a big one in that list, Libertarian Party.
Well, yeah, Libertarian. I kind of always thought about myself until I really got involved in politics. I really kind of thought of myself as more of a libertarian, but I've aligned with the party that aligns with me, and I think you're in the same position. That's the reason why we're both Republican Party card carrying Republican Party people.
There's part of the platform of the Libertarian Party I agree with.
Well,
there's some things I agree with. Some of those overlap. Some of the ideas and stuff overlap.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But there's also stuff that we don't agree on too. So, and that's where we kind of I came down as I'm more aligned with the Republican Party than the Libertarian Party. So, and the other issue is until I want to think it's 2 or 5% that a third party would have to get before they were eligible for federal funding, like the Republican and Democrat parties are when it comes to the election cycles. And don't ask me about how that happens, but
the Green Party, I think, came close to that percentage in the last election, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. But that's the only time that you're going to end up with a new party getting involved or making any ground. So,
you think that'll ever happen locally? What about like independents? Everybody says, "Well, I'll just run as an independent." Can you explain how hard that is locally?
Well,
run as an independent?
Yeah, as an independent, you have to take and qualify. You qualify for the general election instead of the primaries. A lot of people don't understand that the primaries are basically run by the local parties. The probate judge basically runs that election for those. It's kind of like having a club and you're having an election inside your club. Um, when you've got a Republican Party, you've got a candidate there, and that's going to be your candidate for the party. You're electing that person with inside your club, and then you're going to send them out to be in the election against the Democrat to see who actually ends up in the office. When it comes to an independent, there's a few things that fall into issue there. Number one is you have to have a certain number of votes or signatures on a petition in order to run.
Verifiable signatures, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they have to be verified voters
Who
in
voted
the
in
previous election.
Mhm.
And I don't remember exactly what that number is, but it's, I mean, for a district, it was, I want to think over 1,000
Mhm.
signatures you had to have. And then, you have no support structure behind you as an independent, as the Republican Party, we are constantly out there trying to push our candidates. We're trying to use social media to get them out there and everything. And you don't have that support structure behind you as an independent.
Right.
Yeah, any money that the party might contribute, you're out of that too. I know there's been a couple of people that have run as an independent here in Lawrence County. One actually ran, was it last election cycle or one before? It was for commission. I think it was this last election cycle.
Well, I don't recall that one.
No, it was the one before. It was the one before. Because it was,
Was it District 3 County Commission?
I believe so.
Yeah.
3 and 4 always gets me confused.
Yeah.
But so it is possible. The gentleman that ran got enough signatures and was able to make it onto the ballot. One advantage, I guess, you have is your qualifying fee is whatever the Secretary of State, or I guess the probate judge, whichever one sets as your filing fee and everything, where you're taking and basically committing a certain amount of money to the Republican Party or the Democrat Party whenever you qualify on their ticket.
So if you qualify, let's say, I think it's like, generally speaking, it's like 2%. So if you have a $50,000 a year job or whatever, so you're paying $1,000 roughly to,
Right.
If I'm bad at math, that's probably right. So you pay $1,000. So what does that help fund? That $1,000 helps fund the Democratic Party's platform, both locally, state, national level, right? That money
Correct.
goes towards supporting whatever party you're on. So
Correct.
you're, in a sense, donating to that party and that party's platform.
Right. And the local parties will have that information. So if you're looking to run, I know we're coming up on election cycle right now. If you're looking to run, you need to start getting involved. You need to start finding out this information, getting out there and, talking to the people on the executive committees, because ultimately they kind of have the last say so on if you make it on the ticket, because they can actually present a challenge on whether you're on the ticket or not. We've had such a shift of momentum from you got to run as a Democrat to you got to run as a Republican. I think both parties are really at edge now on who is this person? Are they truly a Republican? Are they truly a Democrat? Are they just trying to run on our ticket to get elected type thing? I'm not sure. I'm sure the Democrat Party was already like that. Now the Republican parties had to kind of take that stance as well, because
I've talked to people on in several counties, and there's been a lot of people that's tried to switch, at a mere convenience because of the political shift here locally.
mm-hmm.
Some of those candidates, even incumbents, I'm not going to name their names, but they've actually been sitting in positions, not only across multiple counties. People have been trying to switch parties, and they've actually been denied that ability to switch to their party and run on their platform just because of their years of support and their track record of not being and their values not aligning with that party. So they was actually blocked.
There was a huge ordeal over in Madison County a couple of years ago with I think it was a commissioner or a judge that was trying to switch parties, and when he tried, the Republican Party said no, we don't want you, and I think he actually appealed to the state party, and the state party upheld what the local party said, and would not allow him on the ticket. So that kind of has that whole, goes back to what I was saying there. You got to get involved. You got to get out here and show people that you truly are a Republican or a Democrat, because that executive committee is the one that's going to be kind of looking at those candidates and going, no, he's really not. Or well, here on Facebook, you had a Trump sign in your yard and you're wanting to run as a Democrat, that type of thing.
I've got one other little small thing that I think people are not aware of. The difference between primaries and election or general elections. You touched on it, but I had a friend that I've known mine just about my entire life. He was talking about a candidate that was running on. There was the only candidate running on the Republican ticket for a particular countywide seat, and then there was two people running as Democrats for the same seat, and they was like, well, that person is just running so they can split the ticket so they can get that one Democrat person elected, not the other Democrat person elected. He didn't say parties, but he said that person that was running on a Republican ticket was just running to split their vote. It's impossible to split that vote because that Republican candidate was the only one in that seat. So he didn't face an opponent, and he was automatically the Republican nominee.
Right.
It's impossible, and it doesn't work that way. And so a lot of people think that it's a three-way race when really it's just whoever they pick and the Republican candidate. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people get confused on primaries. Basically, you're picking the captain of your football team to go to the game.
That's a good way to look at it. A lot of people will, and actually the state actually passed a law. I don't know exactly when it was. It wasn't too far from recent history, but we kind of have a closed primary, if you'll call it that, where we have, if you vote in the Republican primary and there's a runoff in the Democrat primary, you can't switch over there to vote in that Democrat primary. You're locked in as a Republican until the general election. And then you get to vote on whether you want the Democrat or the Republican or the independent.
Yeah, you can't vote in this race in the primary, not talking about general election, but in the primary, you can't vote for, let's say, I want to vote in the Republican primary for County Commissioner District 1, but I want to vote in the Democratic primary for probate judge or what have you. People don't understand that.
Yeah,
the reason why you have runoffs is because you have like a three-way race in that primary, and they have to get over 50% plus one vote to avoid a runoff.
Yeah, and we've had that come down to a very real. I think this last cycle we had maybe 4 people in one commission race, and one of them was out, and then you ended up with a runoff between 3 of them, I believe it was. Is that right?
I think it was just the top two. They had
Was it just the top 2? But nobody got that 50% plus 1. So you had to end up in a runoff to have those work out.
Wasn't there a county in Alabama where they flipped a coin? There was like a couple of races back in the 2018 election. Some coin
actually, yes. And we actually almost ended up in that way in, was it 10 or 12 on the District 2 Board of Education race.
Yes.
Gary Bradford and Norman Poole both ended up at the end of the night. I want to think they were dead even.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the provisional ballots were counted that it actually changed to where Gary actually won by like 3 votes.
Mhm.
But they almost reached the point where they had to do the whole flip of the coin. And it's kind of odd sounding to say, okay, we're going to decide who gets this office because on the flip of a coin. But, you know, hey, elections are expensive. I'm going to try to get our probate judge on, Greg Dutton, and he'll talk about how expensive these things are. But I mean, you got so much stuff involved. But
Clerk's office, probate judge's office, sheriff's office is responsible for securing it. You got poll workers, classes to teach the poll workers, print the paper, Secretary of State's office, voter registrar's office.
oh yeah, it really does take the whole village to pull off an election, and it's not cheap because every one of those poll workers is getting paid for that day that they're there. And every time you have a runoff, they're getting paid for that day. And you just take a look at your local polling place around here, and you've got probably 3 to 4 people working every box. I know, like the polling place you and I both vote at, there's probably anywhere from 8 to 10 people in there working that polling location. And you start adding that up across the entire county, and we've got
I drove
30.
I think it's more than that. I drove out when I worked as a sheriff's deputy here. You had to deliver the poll worker checks or go check on things, and I drove all the way out to a box way up in Bankhead. I think 16 people voted in that box the whole day, and they had 3 people staffing that thing. So they got so many boxes everywhere, and they should, because people should be able to vote. They shouldn't have to drive forever to go vote somewhere. So those boxes need to be there, but it is expensive. Yes. And they're all over the county.
So let's talk a little bit too about how the local parties operate within the election system. We've already kind of touched on it with the primaries. As far as what we end up doing is we qualify a candidate. So for somebody that's trying to qualify with the Republican Party, the state executive committee will actually set when qualifying will open and close for our party. And usually our local party will fall in line with that. It just works out best to do that. The state Secretary of State actually sets the last day that we can qualify. So we'll work that date back. And like in this term, it looks like it's probably going to be around the first week of January that qualifying will open.
I guess we don't know that yet because of the 2020 census results haven't made their way and trickled down. And there was some talk that they might have to redraw some district lines. So that could affect part of the qualifying.
That is correct.
Run for state, if you're running for state representative for a particular district, you got to know what district you're going to run in. So you don't know that till they redraw the lines. So that's why nobody knows when qualifying is, because we don't know when they're going to draw the lines.
Right. And that's that's hanging out there. We just don't know yet. And that will actually take a legislative bill through the House and Senate in order to move that.
But it'll probably have to be a special session, I guess, too.
Right. And they already know that's probably coming, so they've been working on having that ready to go.
But this situation is just a once every 10-year type situation because, the census is not done every year. It's just done every 10 years. So this is just a unique thing that hit right in this election cycle.
And the main thing that it's really hinging on is the districts for your Senate and House of Representatives in the state. Your local county districts are actually developed by your local county commission in our case. I'm not sure about others. I'm going to assume that it is the same way throughout the state. Let's see. So back to candidate qualifying. Basically, like you had said before, when you're looking at qualifying to run for an office, you're going to have to take, and I want to think it is 2% of the salary of that office that you will pay to the local party to have that as your qualifying fee. Now I'm pretty positive I've seen, I don't know about this cycle, but I know the last cycle, that's also what the Democrat Party had said as well. Because I saw their Facebook post on that. Unfortunately, we can't really see that anymore because they've taken their page down and went to a closed group. So we can't see what's going on over there, even though, hey, I don't have a problem giving out information for them as well. But back to what's going on with the local parties in the election system. So not only are we qualifying candidates, which also involves possibility of any challenges that come up. If somebody says, okay, well, Russ is not a Republican, there is no way, he had a vote Hillary sign in his yard and I've seen him out here doing whatever, then the local party handles those challenges unless it's on the state level, and then the state party handles it. And unfortunately, we've had to deal with that a couple times, but it's always went very smoothly. We try to organize and help our candidates every time. That may be in the form of trying to do mailers. We'll try to have a headquarters usually, or host some sort of event to help our candidates. Then
presence.
Do what?
It helps with social media presence.
Yes, absolutely. We can get away with putting stuff on the Republican or Democrat Facebook pages a little bit easier than our candidates can, because it's the way that the party stands, not the candidate. Right. We also, on election night, and actually a couple times that next week or the weeks afterwards, we'll be helping the probate judge, or helping the probate judge in collecting and keeping everything organized as the election returns come in. Somebody always has to be there to witness the canvassing and provisional ballots. That's where
all sides, both Democratic and Republican.
Right. Now that's on the primaries. Now, technically, they don't have to have somebody there for the general election, but we're always invited because we've got candidates on the list. So we've got a very good probate judge that really does work with us. And as I heard him say at the last, when we were canvassing last time, he said, hey, we want to treat this as a big happy family and kind of leave your politics at the door.
Mhm.
Uh, so, so Russ, how should somebody get involved with the local party?
From Republican Party standpoint, I would just reach out to me, reach out to you, reach out to somebody they know, reach out to their. More than likely, they live in a district that has some elected office that's a Republican. Get up with them, show up to a meeting, uh, just learn. Google it. Google. Google solves everything. But you might have to skip down 2 or 3 times, but just Google. Hey, what's their go to the official websites, go to credible sources, do some research. I was listening to the news talk today, and they was talking about how you used to do a research paper. You'd have to go in there in the library, check out a book, walk out with a big old stack of books, or look at some 30mm film. I was listening to that on the radio today. I believe it was I don't know if it was Dan Bongino I was listening to, or Phil Williams. They was talking about that today. I was in a vehicle a pretty good bit today, and they was talking about doing that. But now you can just Google it. You can just really do some research, but make sure you're checking your sources. Don't go with a very right wing conservative site. I've seen some propaganda on that side. I've seen propaganda on the left side. Go to some credible sources. Wikipedia is not a credible source. Go somewhere and do some research and find out which way you align. And if it happens to be with the Republican Party, you feel free to reach out to me, Daniel, anybody, and just get involved. We can talk about things all day, but just get involved. I don't care if you get involved. If you get involved in the Democratic Party, and that's what you believe, please do that. People need to understand what's going on in the community and try to work towards it and be passionate.
Yeah, on that Googling thing, hey, my personal cell phone number seems to come up as the Alabama Republican Party for some odd reason. Don't ask me why, but I can't tell you how many times that I got calls this last election cycle. Can I get a Trump sign from you? Do you have any merchandise? No, no, not at all. Sorry. Uh, you know, but uh, but yeah, there's actually algop.com. You can go to that, and that will actually point you to your local party. I think they try to have on there listed when their meetings are, or a contact person to get in touch with. Our biggest thing, we don't have a website, but we try to use our Facebook page for that. And we will post our meetings on there. I know the Democrat Party used to do that, but like I said, for some reason they have changed their Facebook account to where it is a private group, and I can't tell you when they meet or anything else. Like I said before, if somebody wants to reach out and tell me, I'll be happy to put it on here. Because we don't want, yes, we want people in our Republican Party, but we just want you involved. How many people do you hear talk about, well, I can't believe they're taking it over here and doing this or paving this road or whatever, and this road over here is in worse shape. Well, here's the thing. Have you talked to anybody about that? It's one thing to sit around and gripe about it, but have you actually talked to somebody about why they're doing that? Well, these local parties give you an outlet to be able to do that. Like our GOP meeting is the second Thursday of each month at 6:30, and usually we meet up at Mel's Steakhouse. Well, anybody's welcome. The meetings are open. We usually try to have some sort of speaker. This next month, August, we are having, let me see if I can get this name right. Greg Cook, I believe it is. He is running for the Supreme Court here in Alabama. He's going to be our guest speaker. But every month we go around the room and we talk about, okay, what's going on in the commission, what's going on in the court system, what's going on at the DA's office. Anybody running for office? You want to announce? Anything like that.
And generally, all those candidates stay afterwards, and you can ask them specific questions. Because sometimes you might want to ask something, and you might be intimidated to ask it in front of a bunch of people. But generally speaking, they hang out afterwards, and I've seen people standing there asking people in office questions till 9:30, 10 o'clock. So it's a pretty good way to really get some good answers, or in some more intimate setting to where you can talk to people about stuff.
Yeah, usually that's you and I that are staying that late. So,
yeah. Melissa really loves that.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
You hear that a lot about, why are you don't vote for the party, you need to vote for the person, this, that, and other. Well, I'm sure that Kay Ivey or Donald Trump didn't meet 70 million people.
Right.
It's hard to know somebody. So you have to have a baseline to go off of. And that's the whole point of the political party system. I don't agree with everything that everybody does in my party. But if you're a part of your local party, then you can control that, and your voice will be heard louder and more meaningfully if you're telling that person face to face, as opposed to just complaining on social media. It's like reporting a crime by calling some city in Georgia's 911. You're talking about a problem here in Lawrence County. I mean, nobody's hearing what you're saying because nobody knows who you are. But if you go talk to people and get involved, then I think that'd be more meaningful. And just because I'm conservative or Republican, however you want to paint me, I don't hate anybody that's in the Democratic Party. I don't dislike anybody that's in the Democratic Party. I've got great friends that I break bread with routinely, that stay at my house when they come into town, that I love to absolute death, that I am on the far end of the political spectrum. And I don't want, I want everybody that follows this podcast and all that to understand that just because I'm conservative Republican doesn't mean I won't sit down and listen to somebody that might be liberal or a Democrat and their perspective or their outlook.
Oh, that's like me. I mean, my buddy that I'm kind of in the whole beekeeping thing with. I mean, he is a I forget what you would call it, but he is a Democrat. I mean, he has made that very clear to me. But you know what? He and I go do stuff all the time. I mean, it's not an issue. I don't want anybody being mad at me for being a Republican, and I'm not going to be mad at anybody else for being a Democrat.
I voted for a Democrat candidate or two back in the day. That's local
yeah.
politics.
In fact, I crossed the line to vote for a friend for sheriff one time, and that was the only thing I voted for in that Democrat primary, was just for that one person.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be, we're pitted against each other like we're in a dogfight. We can still get along. We can still be great friends. Hey, I guarantee you, everybody that you go to church with is not a Republican. There's probably a bunch of them out there that do not vote the way that you vote, or do not think the way that you think. So, it's okay. We can still sit down and break bread and, have fun together. Like I've said before, if we can find somebody that was willing to be civil and everything, wants to come on here and be our Democrat voice, hey, I'm game. But
what makes you align with it? I think one thing, maybe to get to know us better, what makes you a Republican versus a Democrat?
Um, I would probably center that around a lot of my Christian faith.
Mhm.
I believe that a child is a human being and has a soul once it's conceived. Um, I personally, I believe that um, we need to have smaller government. Of course, okay, well, that's great. Smaller government. That's just kind of the talking point, I guess you would say, for Republicans. But what does that mean? Well, I don't want the government sitting down and telling me, okay, you've got to take and do this or that. I'm just not in favor of that.
Mhm.
Now, there are certain things that come to the point where, yes, somebody has to say, kind of set a guideline.
Mhm.
Take minimum wage, for example. All right. Minimum wage is great. It says this is the minimum wage for somebody starting out, but it's not a living wage. It wasn't never designed to be. It's a wage that nobody needs to be paid below this. I actually had a conversation with a coworker today about that very subject. Um, I believe that we all should be trying to strive for bettering ourselves.
Mhm.
And that part of that says, okay, that minimum wage job is just that. It's a minimum wage job because that's the lowest that they can pay you to do that. I need to go find something to better myself. I'm not going to sit here and depend on the government and this little meager job to make, everything good in the world. It's not going to sustain me. Um, One of the other thing that I'm a big supporter of as far as being a Republican is our military and our Second Amendment rights. Now, there's a lot of people that take that to an extreme. I'm not really one of those. Uh, I hear people talk about constitutional carry a lot, especially in Alabama. But I also have a friend of mine right down there that is in law enforcement. And I've got several friends in law enforcement. And I'm okay with having to buy a permit so that my friends in law enforcement can go home and see their families tonight. Giving them that little bit of, if you're saying I'm taking away a little bit of my freedom to be able to make sure that they have a chance to go home, I'm okay with that. Uh, so
You're not cool with me buying an F-16 with some nukes on it?
do what now?
You're not cool with me getting an F-16, right to their arm, F-16?
No, that might be a little excessive.
Yeah.
But I come from a military family, so yeah, I'm a real big supporter of the military. I did not serve myself, but my dad served for 23 and a half years and retired out of the Air Force. So I'm a big supporter of the military.
Mhm.
So what about you, Russ?
Basically most of what you said. I'm pretty pro Second Amendment, probably even more than most of my law enforcement people. I don't want to. A lot of friends get caught up on the permit thing. I'm not so much. I wish it could be free to everybody.
I'd be okay with that.
A lot of people disagree. I'm not going to go down that road with that. My Christian faith lines more with the Republican Party as well. As far as abortion, things of that nature. Another thing is I like you're talking about small government. My big thing is I don't want to borrow money from another country to send to study some snail in the bottom of an ocean in the Indian Ocean. I don't want to borrow from my daughter and her kids and her kids' kids. I don't want to borrow money from them. And there's some Republicans that love spending money.
Oh yeah.
And I don't like it. That's some of that stuff that I don't agree with. I believe in the federal government's responsible for a narrow window, and everything else is left up to states. There's a lot of states' rights issues. If California wants to legalize marijuana, do whatever they want to do, so be it. But right now it's against federal law, and I think that we should enforce whatever laws we have. But just like if Alabama wants to be a constitutional carry state, do whatever they want, then Alabama has that right to do that. If there's a lot of, I'm a big states' rights person, and that applies whether I agree with what that state wants to do or not. That's that state. We're the United States of America. So I think that we get away from states' rights unless it's convenient for whatever thing we're trying to push. But generally speaking, I'm a big states' right person. Small federal government, strong military, peace through strength. Some of the libertarian stuff I don't agree with was kind of that isolationism and not implementing foreign policy. If we have a good, strong foreign policy and good trade agreements and things of that nature, then it benefits us both economically and our standing. The world does better when the United States is strong. I think Reagan did a great job with that winning the Cold War, and I thought we was going down the right road with that. I'm not sure what kind of problems we'll come across in the future, but bottom line up front, my Christian faith, I believe, aligns with the Republican Party. I'm not calling Democrats non-Christian. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the way I interpret Christianity and things that I support align more with that. And the small government, Second Amendment, First Amendment, if people want to change some of those things, then people need to legislate to change the Constitution. If they don't agree with that, it's still, it is what it is till legislatures change things. It's that we need to interpret the Constitution as it is written. It's not a living document. So I'm big on small government, Christian values, supporting Israel and all that. And the Republican Party seems to align more with that than the other party. And I'm not saying some of those people within that party don't. I'm just saying, generally speaking, that's the way I feel and why I think that way.
Well, and that goes back to that whole party platform. That's a lot of what the Democrat Party or Republican platform actually says. But I would have never guessed that you would be a big Second Amendment person, all that stuff behind you. So,
and the Second Amendment's not for hunting. It's for the right to protect yourself. That's another misconception.
Yeah. All right. Well, Russ, I think we should probably wrap this one up and get ready for the next one. So hope y'all have enjoyed us sitting here talking about this, kind of talking about what the parties mean and what we feel that they represent and everything. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving us a try here. We hope you'll come back. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so that you'll know whenever we do make our next podcast. Again, we're trying to do this once a week. No guarantees on that. Mm-hmm. If you're listening to us on one of the podcast sites, make sure that you give us 5 stars. That helps us out a lot. The biggest thing, like I said last week, biggest thing that we can ask is that you share the podcast and come back next time. So, all right, Russ. Well, I'll let you have the last word here, or maybe.
Y'all be good.
All right. We'll see y'all.